เล่นแล้วเซพอกต่อโคตรแย่อันนี้ไม่แย่ไว้ยมาไลฟ์ดึกจังนั่นสิสวัสดีค่ะลังเลระหว่างซื้อ expansion D4 กับซื้อลาเซพอกมีไกด์ให้คิดคร่าวๆไหมผมว่ารอดู developer อัปเดตตอนนี้แล้วดูว่าเกมไหนน่าสนใจมากกว่าแล้วกันผมคิดว่าลาเซพอกมันดีกับผู้เล่นใหม่เพราะว่ามันน่าจะเล่นได้นานส่วน expansion D4 ถ้ายังไม่เคยเล่นหลัง expansion ก็ต้องบอกว่ามันสนุกขึ้นมากเพราะฉะนั้นจริงๆมันน่าจะสูสีกันอยู่ตอนนี้เพราะอันหนึ่งคอนเทนต์ใหม่เพิ่งเข้าอีกอันหนึ่งคอนเทนต์ใหม่กำลังจะเข้าเป็นผมจะรอดูดีกว่าคือทั้งสองมาเล่นเกมไหนแย่ก็ไม่ย้ายไม่เก็บสวัสดีทุกคนด้วยครับคนที่เหลือที่ไม่กลับมาคือหลับไปแล้วแล้วอยู่ดีของก็ขายออกพอดีโฟนแน่ๆแล้วลือจะเขียนว่ามาเที่ยงคืนทำไมวะกลัวพอให้มีตังค์ผ่านเล่นอีกนิดนึงสร้อยชื่ออะไรนะ Inheritance Erase ยังไม่เอ็นเกมดันแมงมุมควรเข้าไหมครับควรเพราะว่ามันทำให้เอ็นเกมเล่นออกมาดูดีขึ้นครับเข้าไปฝึกความยากมันไว้เพราะเดี๋ยวยังไงก็ต้องลงต้องแรง12โอ้ยขาดอีก80,000ซื้อเลยก็ได้เนี่ยเข้าไปเจอว่ามอนเตกยังมีนัยยะสำคัญเป็นเรื่องที่ต้องเจอละสแปมตั้งสแปมออกก็ได้เนาะ80,000ต้องใช้กี่ครั้งวะต้องตั้งของที่ LP สูงๆอ่ะหรือของ Legendary
Yes. Hello.
สวัสดีครับมาแคมป์ไฟรอดีโฟ4จัดไปซีซั่น2เป็นไงข้างครับไม่ได้กลับมาเล่นนานมากคนเล่นเยอะเพราะว่ากระแสมาจากเกมอื่นแล้วก็คุณภาพชีวิตดีขึ้นเยอะเลยครับ
Yes. Hello?
วันนี้หนีมาเกมอื่นแทนสวัสดีครับมากี่โมงอีกประมาณ5 นาทีไม่ถึงละ3 นาทีคุณกำลังปีบอกรอดีโฟคำเดอะแบ็คคำออนเดอะแบ็คเหมือนคิมคาเดเชียนอะนะมาเลย1 ชั่วโมงไม่ไหวจริงดีโฟมีอะไรน่าสนใจไหมคอลแลบเบอร์เซิร์ถ้ามองว่าน่าสนใจก็น่าสนใจซีซั่นใหม่บอสใหม่บอสเอ็นเกมที่ยากเท่า Uber Lilith ตัวใหม่นั่นผมมองว่าน่าสนใจพลังประจำซีซั่นใหม่ดึงพลังของบอสมาใช้ผมว่าพันนั้นก็น่าสนใจถามเจน PV 2นะครับ Trinity ทำงานยังไงเล่นท่าเดียวคุ้มใส่ไหมมันจะได้ดาเมจตามท่าเดียวที่เราทำเพื่อเก็บสแต็กเล่นท่าเดียวผมว่าคุ้มครับพีฟิกของ Experiment ที่เทเลพอร์ตมินเนี่ยนไปกับเราเข้ามาแปะในไอเทมหลักยังไงน่าจะเป็น Woven Echo Craft ครับผมแต่ผมไม่แน่ใจว่าอันไหนนะไม่แน่ใจว่าเป็นอันที่ผมยังไม่ได้ปลดหรือเปล่ามีซีซั่นใหม่ใช่ไหมใช่ครับโปรเซอร์ดีใจมากๆเยี่ยม Sleeping Prince สวัสดีครับเจอแมปพิเศษ Nexa ได้กดรูนเซิร์ฟไปเลยไม่รู้เตะออกแล้วแมปเฟลจบละเห็นเขาบอกว่ามีการระเบิดเซิร์ฟตัวเองเพื่อแก้คนปั๊มของอะไรประมาณเนี้ยแต่สักพักหนึ่งแล้วนะ
Derek Nunez. I'm the lead seasons designer for Season 8 here on Diablo 4.
Hi, I'm Charles Dunn. I'm a class designer working on the final design team on Diablo.
Awesome. Well, we have a full crew here today. We're actually going to be talking a ton today about Season 8. I know we had a Season 8 PTR live stream. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the same content that was in there just because some people may have not tuned in for that. But it's a quick recap of what Season 8 is. We announced it earlier this week
สวัสดีครับ
on our
นะ
blogs.
ข้ามช่วง quick recap ไปนิดนึงก็ตอนนี้มาแล้วสำหรับ Diablo 4
If you haven't
Developer
checked out
update
like any of the trailers and stuff like that, most definitely do so.
หลายๆคนหน้าเดิมที่เราคุ้นเคย จริงๆก็ทุกคนเลยล่ะ
Entire stream, I can already tell. So if you see me fidgeting with my ear, I apologize.
เรามาดูกัน
We are also going to talk about PTR changes that are coming to Season 8. We got a ton of feedback from the Season 8 PTR, and we want to make sure that we talk through all
นะ
the
มี
specific
feedback เยอะแยะจาก PTR Season 8 นะครับ ก็มีการเปลี่ยนแปลงหลังจากการ
Likewise, we're also going to talk a
รับ
little bit
ฟัง
about some class updates and balance updates.
feedback แล้วมี class update balance update system update reliquary overview แล้วก็ Q&A นะครับ
We'll do a quick overview on reliquaries, which is a new system that will start with Season 8 and be permanent going forward. And then of course
ก็สำหรับคนที่ดูย้อนหลังนะครับสวัสดีด้วยนะไม่ได้เจอกันนานกับ Campfire Diablo นะ
We'll jump right in straight into Season 8 content. So Derek, do you want to talk to us a little bit about Season 8 with Belial returning?
Yeah, absolutely. So Season 8, Belial returns as the continuation
ชื่อซีซั่นนะครับ Belial Return นะหนึ่งในบอสอีกหนึ่งตัวนะครับที่เข้ามาในเกม
creating the perfect opportunity that Belial, the Lord of Lies and one of the great evils, has been
นะ Lord of Lies Belial เห็นช่องว่างจากการที่ Mephisto กำลังลุกลาน Sanctuary อยู่ถือโอกาสเข้ามา
a plan to plunge the denizens of Sanctuary into the realm of lies, where he maintains sole dominance over perceptions of reality.
หลอกผู้คนใน Sanctuary ให้เข้าไปใน Realm of Lies นะครับที่ซึ่งคนไม่สามารถมองข้ามคำโกหกของ Belial ได้
Joining our little ragtag group here. So first up is drumroll. There you go. Saina. On the left here is a
NPC ใหม่ที่จะมากับซีซั่นนี้2ตัวนะครับ
You meet right at the beginning of the Season 8 quest line. She kind of clues you into all like the weird happenings that are going on in Sanctuary at this time.
เป็น NPC ที่บอกข้อมูลเราเกี่ยวกับเหตุการณ์ที่กำลังเกิดขึ้น
Suspicions are that Belial's behind it.
ความสงสัยที่เกิดขึ้นก็คือ
Called Season 8, Belial returns, so she ends up being right. Yes, Belial has infiltrated Sanctuary.
สิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นแปลกๆใน Sanctuary มาจากการกระทำของ Belial แล้วก็นะครับสปอยสำหรับคนที่ยังไม่รู้นะครับชื่อซีซั่นคือ Belial's Return เพราะฉะนั้นใช่ Belial เป็นผู้อยู่เบื้องหลัง
If we're good, okay, we're good. All right, sorry. Go ahead. There you go.
All right, Belial returns if you missed that. Yeah, so on the left here, Saina is a ex-Vigeri
NPC Saina นะครับ
to these odd happenings that are going on in Sanctuary, and she suspects that Belial is behind it. Again, kind of spoiler alert, he is because Belial returns and he's back in Sanctuary. You'll also be getting acquainted with Jarius on the right here.
Jarius ทางฝั่งขวา
Claims to be a former Cathedral of Light Knight who
เคลมว่าตัวเองเป็นอัศวินใน Cathedral of Light
with his own kind of internal struggles and past traumas. So collectively, this ragtag group will be engaging in kind of a cat and mouse chase, race against time to put a stop to Belial before he's allowed to even regain a single like
แข่งกับเวลาเพื่อที่จะจัดการ Belial ก่อนที่ Belial จะได้พลังเต็มคืนมานะ
kind of his past works from Diablo 3 specifically. Belial likes to work in the shadows and infiltrate society and kind of manipulate again from behind the scenes. So fans might know already what kind of dangers and turmoil can happen when Belial is even allowed to regain full dominance in Sanctuary. Like in Diablo 3, he overtook the city of Chaldean when he was impersonating Emperor Hakan II.
มีการเล่าฟีดแบ็กมา back story ของ Belial ในภาค 3 สำหรับใครที่ไม่เคยเล่นนะ
kind of exiled the Iron Wolves, the once kind of highly regarded guardians of Chaldean, into out of the city, rendering them to be the the current exiled, disgraced militia group that they are now in the events of เปลี่ยน Iron Wolf นะครับกลุ่มทหารรับจ้างที่เคยมีชื่อให้กลายเป็นนะพวกนอกรีดได้นะเป็นการกระทำของ Belial นะชอบ manipulate สถานการณ์ And with that,
แน่นอน
that's all the new stuff that we did not cover in the
คอนเทนต์ใหม่ที่จะเพิ่มมา
blog posts out and all that
บอส
kind of
ใหม่
stuff, but I want to cover the stuff that kind of retread some things that we covered before that went into the PTR and kind of end each segment with the PTR learnings to kind of keep it structured and fresh here. So as we know, season 8 is the season of bosses. More specifically,
เป็นซีซั่นประจำของบอสเลยซีซั่นนี้นะครับสำหรับซีซั่น8
new bosses to the roster, updating it with
มีบอสใหม่เข้ามาในรอสเตอร์อัปเดตเมคานิก
quality of life updates.
แล้วก็
again,
QL
recap first and foremost, as far as the new bosses are concerned, we have our buddy Belial here in a
เบลไลออนะครับจะเป็นบอสที่เราสู้ได้
top of the lair
มี
boss.
ทั้งร่างจริงและร่าง
The new, biggest battle ladder, the most
เรียกว่าร่างคนแล้วก็ร่างดีมอนฟอร์มแล้วกัน
the rest of the bosses, and also bringing a couple of new buddies to join the party. First up is Urvar from our Vessel of Hatred
แล้วก็
expansion.
แน่นอนบอสจาก
where he is
โบ
joining
วา
the
นะครับ
bottom
จาก
rung
Vessel of Hatred
tier
ก็จะ
one.
เข้ามาเป็นบอสที่เรา
And
สู้
he's
ได้
also being joined with the Harbinger of Hatred.
Harbinger of Hatred นะ Mephisto ร่างหมา
So
นะครับ
again, collectively, we have new boss roster additions of
บอสใหม่ 3 ตัว
Supreme form at the top, Harbinger of Hatred just below him, and Urvar kind of guarding the gates on the ground floor. So collectively, these are all the new bosses that are joining, and these are all ones that we actually had in the PTR, so I'm excited to kind of share some updates we've made since then. But that is not it for Belial stuff. We also have Belial in his smaller form, as we might know.
ไปแล้วร่างเล็กนะครับก่อนที่จะเป็นร่างใหญ่ที่เป็นร่าง full scale boss
Lair boss ladder just through and through. So again, defeating any of the lair bosses has a percent chance to
ทุกครั้งที่เราสร้างค่าแลบอสประจำฐานได้ก็จะมีโอกาสที่เบลไลออจะออกมานะ
double the fun. So yeah, that's again kind of a bit of a recap of the lair boss updates, the rosters that we had to the system, and kind of just want to chat a little bit about some of the PTR findings that we had from that. So again, first up, we had all the bosses in there, and we gathered a bunch of great feedback over kind of just a general tuning. We also updated all of the existing lair bosses with new abilities and whatnot. So I guess the first and foremost, kind of like change that we made since the PTR is just refine the balance on the supreme form of Belial. We had some feedback and also felt it ourselves that he wasn't hitting as hard as he could or kind of representing his proper status on the
ฟีดแบ็กต่างๆจากผู้เล่นที่เล่นมานะครับก็มาปรับปรุงเกี่ยวกับเบลไลออบอกว่าเบลไลอออ่อนไปบ้างตีเบาไปบ้างนะมีสกิลใหม่บ้างโดยเฉพาะแลบอสด้วยนะบอสลองทั่วไป
attack mechanics to cut down on some of the one shots that we were seeing
ตัดปัญหาเรื่อง one shot ออกแล้วก็แบบทั่วๆไปทำให้ความยากของบอสแต่ละตัวออกมาเฉลี่ยพอๆกัน
Damage in PTR just to test out. We had removed the stacking debuff that the lair bosses had done, and it was just
แล้วก็ stacking debuff ใน PTR เอาออกไป
that debuff, and we felt like it was disrespecting players' defenses. So we stripped that out, but then buffed the damage a little bit too much for PTR, and we've since pulled back on some of the one shots there.
Yeah. So yeah, when season 8
สรุปแล้วก็คือบอสจะอ่อนลงนิดหน่อยเพราะไม่มีdebuff แล้วแต่โดยเฉลี่ยจะตีแรงขึ้น
appropriate for the rewards that they give, for the effort that players are putting into that journey to get to the top.
Yeah, definitely. I think we also sort of took a look at the material tuning and the overall reward of a lot of the lair bosses from the PTR. So in general, we're taking an approach where globally, sort of just across the game, like when you kill elites and things like that, we're bringing the materials, the material drops are being reduced, but we're actually buffing the materials from the specific activities that you need to do to actually gain these materials. Right. And we're also we had taken a look at the boss drops actually in totality from PTR, and we've buffed it. So a good example now is
เทียบจากบอสดรอปใน PTR ตอนนี้จะบัฟลูดขึ้นไปอีก
as opposed to the one from PTR. And we're just really sort of trying to chase after the philosophy of the bosses are something that you're going to do periodically. It's going to be a big challenge, but they're going to be more rewarding.
จะเปลี่ยนแนวคิดใหม่ว่าบอสจะไม่ใช่คอนเทนต์ที่สแปมฟาร์มวนๆมาฟาร์มบางครั้งแต่ว่าของดรอปโดยรวมจะดีขึ้น
Previous seasons of these bosses.
Yeah, we really like encouraging this diversity of endgame activities where you're doing lots of different activities that
อยากให้ผู้เล่นกระจายไปท
fighting these bosses
ำคอนเทนต์หลายๆอย่าง
is really a high
มาก
moment.
กว่าจากการฟาร์มสแปมบอสอย่างเดียว
But it's not something
แล้วก็
we really want. Oh, you're just going to chain bosses nonstop and that's all you do.
เวลามาฟาร์มบอสก็รู้สึกว่าลูป
Of endgame
มี
activities.
ประโยชน์พอ
Yeah, and just to make the spread a little bit better, if you think about season 7, you might for example, want Fists of Fate. So you'd only fight Beast and Ice, and that's the only boss you'd ever do. So what we've done actually, and this was in the PTR, but I just wanted to cover it because I think it's an important note, is now all the bosses half and half split their loot. So half is targeted, half is global. So that means you still have a reason to do all of the bosses, and that just makes experiencing the variety of activities that we have in Diablo
แบ่งลูทกัน
4
ใหม่
still a bit
สำหรับ
more
บอส
There's always a boss at the end
เพื่อจะได้มีผล
journey of
ให้
any
ผู้เล่น
given
อยากสู้
activity
บอส
of
ทุก
the
ตัว
game.
มากขึ้น
Yeah, and with that, it's a great thing that Belial got buffed up in his drops too, because as we recall, for those who play the PTR, you can actually target farm the specific, mimic the specific lair boss loot that you want him to kind of drop for you.
That's exactly right.
So cool, yeah, that's a bit of a recap and some of the PTR findings, and let's jump into kind of covering the next section here, which is the lair keys.
แลคีย์นะครับกุญแจลังบอสแต่ละตัว
We've changed up entirely the full summoning and reward flow of the lair boss system. So all of the first foremost one is that all of the bosses are now free to summon, and the items that were formerly known as the summoning items to summon them up are now living a new life and role as lair keys. I think we have a bit of a graphic here to
บอส
kind of show.
จะไม่ใช้แลคีย์ในการเปิดละ
change of making the bosses free to summon. It lets you really test your build.
บอสจะลงฟรี
We are like ramping the difficulty, right? The initiate lair bosses a little bit easier to take down, and they definitely ramp up in difficulty as you go up that ladder. And so if you're not sure, like, hey, am I able to take on this boss? Give it in the torment tier that you're in. You kind of have to. You can get in there with no investment, right? You're not
ดู
gonna
เส้นนะครับ เส้นที่เป็นเส้น
resources
ปะ
and then
ออปชั่น
find
อล
out, oh, this
เส้น
boss
ที่เป็น
is
เส้น
hard
หนา
to do. You can go
ต้อง
and
ลง
fight them, and then if you're able to take them down, you can use those to unlock the loot. And I think that's just a much better
ถ้าผ่าน
experience.
เราถึงใช้กุญแจ ไม่ใช่กุญแจในการลง ใช้กุญแจเพื่อเปิดเอาลูท
A reminder here with this nice, very fancy chart, looks gorgeous, is just kind of streamlining how players gain access and kind of climb the ladder. So
สังเกตว่า Stygian Stone ไม่มีโลอยู่ในนี้ละ
lair keys required to gather open the horde chest the bosses now drop upon death. From 2 to 1, they stack up to 99, and one of the neat things is kind of like encouraging players engage in a wide variety of bosses is all the initiate initiate tiered lair bosses will not just drop the associated key for the next boss that they're kind of linked to, but they'll also all of them can drop a Stygian Stone, which is also living a new world that it can be crushed to turn into the lair key for any of the greater lair bosses.
Stygian Stone ดรอปแล้วสามารถเอาไปย่อยเพื่อไปทำเป็นกุญแจบอสตัวอื่นได้
chance to get the surprise Belial ambush, which is the key.
ฆ่าบอสตัวไหนก็ได้มีโอกาสที่จะทริกเกอร์ Encounter ของ Belial แล้วพอฆ่า Belial ล่าง Ambush ก็จะได้ Hugs เก็บ Hugs ก็ไปเปิด Belial ล่างจริงได้
Lead to Belial, and again, kind of this is a recap here. We have the full flow in action that you can just kind of remind yourself here.
I think we got some gameplay, I believe.
There you go. So again, here we are with the summoning pedestal. Again, no materials required for the cost.
กด Summon ไม่ใช้ Material อะไรเลย
Harbinger of Hatred here, again, our new tier 2 lair boss, and we don't want to spoil the mechanics of this really kind of cool fight, but
สู้เสร็จ
players who played in the PTR got to
ใช้กุญแจในการเปิดเอาลูท
we're just going to jump ahead here to opening up the horde and getting the loot.
Yeah, and I think something you might notice is that we've actually tuned a lot of the material costs on the chest. So in PTR it was actually 4.
มินิบอสสามารถเกิด Belial ล่าง Ambush สามารถเกิดขึ้นได้ เราก็สู้กับ Belial ฆ่า Belial ได้ก็จะดรอป Hugs
a nerf to chain farming. That's something that I think has been a result of this change, and frankly, I think that's something that feels a little bit more appropriate to the overall game. We didn't like that how you could sort of just drop into any party and get a bunch of uniques for free. We feel like you need to work for some of the loot in Diablo, right? If we don't have you do some challenges and work for things, the reward isn't as sweet, right? It's sort of like walking that fine line between just challenging enough and just rewarding enough that it
เพราะฉะนั้นตอนนี้ไม่สามารถไปเกาะปาร์ตี้ดูดเอาของได้แล้วเราต้องมี Material Summon ไปเปิดกล่องเอง
in the game. So to sort of compensate that, that's why we've done a bunch of buffs to the overall loot of these lair bosses from the PTR. So again, like Giga Belial is dropping 2. We've increased the just baseline uniques that drop off of the lair boss hordes, in addition to Belial sometimes showing up and actually doubling your loot. So we think this strikes a better balance for a social party play as well as solo players. And overall, we think this is just a better and healthier journey to actually getting to more power. You actually have to work a little bit more for it.
เป็นโครงที่ดีนะผมรู้สึกว่าเกมมันขยับจากแคชชวลไปเข้าหาผู้เล่นที่เล่นจริงจังมากขึ้น
One of the feedbacks that we got from kind of like the new loop and flow of the horde and the summoning material
แล้วแคชชวลก็ไม่ได้รู้สึกว่ายากเพราะว่าลงครั้งหนึ่งก็ได้ของเยอะ
a bit too long of a delay before they can get back to the boss. So would you like to take the honors of this really cool
Yeah, sure. So we had this wait time. It was essentially for parties to go back to town and maybe manage the loot. It was about 20 or 30 seconds, but 20 or 30 seconds in Diablo is a fucking an eternity. So we took it out essentially like how we've mitigated is if the party has all opened the chest, we'll just skip the timer, and that includes solo. So if you just open it up, we'll just skip the timer. You're back to blasting. So
yeah.
ตัดเวลาการรอพาร์ทระหว่างฟาร์มไปด้วย
Was the apparition incursions that again this is a new seasonal. Everything I just covered there is all the permanent updates to
คอนเทนต์ที่พูดมาก่อนหน้านี้ทั้งหมดเป็นคอนเทนต์ถาวรที่อยู่กับเกมตลอดไปอันนี้เป็นเรื่องซีซั่นบ้าง apparition incursion
the apparition incursions which is a
วิญญาณบอส
boss rush event where players will be going through kind of like blasting through hordes of Belial's apparition monsters to fight through some bosses and kind of ultimately go into a final showdown against him. And I think we have some the footage to
มาดู footage จากการบอสรัช fast pace
So again, this is an open world activity that is pretty much up 24/7. The kind of goal for this is that players would, hop on the train, blast through some bosses, collect some of your first boss powers, and then, fight Belial. But I do want to cover some of the, again, this is meant to be kind of a very fast-paced, simple event that is meant to kind of mix in with the wider pantheon of level-up activities that we have. So I do want to cover some of the PTR updates that we've made since then that should have this sit a bit more cleanly into kind of where it should be fitting within the level.
แล้วก็แน่นอนมินิเบลไลออก็เจอได้
The first bit from this, as far as the PTR is concerned, is we've rebalanced the role a bit of the what's it called? The Apparition Incursion. All these names. Of the Apparition Incursion. So one of the feedbacks that we got from the PTR was that there was some concern over its long-term reward and whatnot. So the first thing that we've updated since then was introduce a
feedback คือรางวัลระยะยาว
Every now and again, you get the whisper bounty, and that's kind of like a call to action to come back to the boss train.
แน่นอนว่าก็คือแก้ปัญหาด้วยการใส่ quest whisper เข้าไป
The balancing is concerned. One of the primary roles that we kind of saw in the PTR for the Apparition Incursion is one, giving you your first batch of magic grade boss powers, but also earning the spectral ash that you need to level them up. So there was definitely some feedback that we felt and received that getting enough spectral ash through the Apparition Incursion is a bit of a slog. Like it requires too much of the player's attention or time rather, and it just is not representative of the amount of time that we necessarily want players to feel like they have to invest into just playing the Apparition Incursion. So one, we've reduced the
ลดเวลาที่ต้องใช้กับคอนเทนต์เมื่อกี้นะ แล้วก็ลด currency ที่ต้องใช้ในการอัปเกรดพลังเพื่อทำให้ไม่จำเป็นต้องฟาร์มนานเท่าเดิมแล้วก็ไปบัฟแลบอสดรอปแทน
Apparition Incursion is there for kind of the new novelty to get you your powers, kind of get you acclimated to earning spectral ash, but it's not necessarily there to dominate your full attention. We want you to engage in the wider pantheon again as level up activities. So we want you to do Apparition Incursions, take a break and do the Hell Tides and Nightmare Dungeons and kind of experience the variety of the content to better set you up for when you enter the Torment tiers, where we're really expecting players to do all the Torment stuff and engage with the lair bosses to really amplify their
สาระหลักๆก็คือพยายามกระจายทรัพยากรไปอยู่ในคอนเทนต์ต่างๆเพื่อให้ผู้เล่นโยกไปเล่นคอนเทนต์เยอะที่สุดเท่าที่จะเป็นไปได้
So we boosted the XP through the whispers. We also added XP to the bosses that you'll kill in those events. We're also, through the combination of lowering the cost of upgrading some of the early boss powers, we really want to position this in a place where it's sort of a fast track through the leveling experience, and it's a place to go. And we want there sort of to be a handoff to Torment in the end game, where you, like you said, you have to sort of start to do other activities in the game. Something we saw from Season 7 that we kind of want to address and change for this season to see how it feels is Season 7 headhunts just dominated the entire game from start to
Season 7 สิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นก็คือผู้เล่นเล่น Head Hunt คอนเทนต์ประจำซีซั่นทั้งเกมเลยเพราะว่ามันดรอปเยอะกว่าที่อื่นทั้งหมด
instead of growing bigger.
Well, I think it's fun till it's not.
It's fun till it's not, right? Yeah, and we sort of tuned the reputation and like the sort of headhunt currency that you needed a little bit too aggressively in terms of needing you to actually play through that too much. So we're taking a different step or a different approach here.
Yeah, and that's where the apparition incursions are. Like, not definitely not intending for it to kind of dominate your full attention again. It's there as kind of like that fun activity to get you going, and also when you do graduate into the torment tiers, due to the addition of the whisper bounties on it, you'll pull you back every now and again when it's super valuable for you. All right, cool. So the next bit here is I want to talk about the boss powers that we had into the PTR. Again,
พลัง
kind of
บอส
a quick
24 อัน
recap here. Through the season, early quest beat, you kind of gain
2 สไลด์ต่อ 1 พลัง
steal the powers of targeted bosses across Sanctuary's content. This is 24 of them in total, starting off with the apparition bosses, then the world bosses, and then the lair bosses.
พลังของมินิบอสใน Apparition เมื่อกี้ World Boss แล้วก็ Lair Boss
Because it's his season and he wants 2 powers for himself. So who are we to say no to him?
มาดูพลังบอสลอง 10 ตัวกันก่อน
I think we have some things to kind of recap some of the powers here. So here's the boss power screen, and as kind of a recap here, each of the powers have 2 sides to it, a main and a modifier side. You can slot
แต่ละพลังมี 2 ไซส์นะครับ 3 ตาล่างหรือว่าตาบนก็คือเมนกับไซส์
of that signature move. Whether it be the Lilith Wave Blast, which we'll probably see in a second
สี
here.
ฟ้าก็จะเป็น Magic Boss.
Every boss power also has a side B, the modifier side, which allows you to further customize and augment your total expression.
อันนี้อะไรนะ Beat in the Eyes
Being the boss, essentially. We like kind of call it like customizable, boss powers and stuff. So again, this is the Lilith Wave Blast that you'll get from the first time kill of defeating Lilith. This is the Duriel Burrow.
Okay, อันนี้มุดดินของ Duriel.
Off of the evade, so really fun for kind of the twitchy mobile builds. Also just kind of fun just to see a big bear burrow into the
sneaky where
อันนี้
this one that's super easy to miss
World
is
Boss
the Wandering Death
Wandering Myth
Where is it? I don't see it.
I don't see it at all.
Oh, I think it's that little blue line.
Hey, did we move that close?
แต่คนบอกว่าเดฟบอกว่ามองยากหน่อยสกิลนี้
One of the big groundbreaking updates from the PTR was that we did do some adjustments to the powers
ให้ดู3 อันเองเหรอ
and whatnot, like bringing the beam a little bit closer so it feels not so detached from the character, especially the melee builds. It kind of felt fine for like the the casters that kind of feels like you're like shooting beams out from your hand. It looks great for those, but some of the melee builds, it kind of felt a little bit disjointed where you're a whirlwind barb and then kind of like a detached like beam coming across. So we did
ดึงพลังให้เข้าไปใกล้ตัวขึ้นนะสำหรับคนที่เคยลองแล้ว
I think this kind of sets up. We received a ton of feedback about just the general balance of how much of your total player's power expression should be pulled in from the boss powers versus your actual build itself. So this is where I get to hand the
Yeah, I'd love to talk more about kind of the balancing we saw from these boss powers on the PTR, which is like so valuable as developers for us to get that feedback and hear see players testing these powers and these builds and really like letting us know what they feel about it. It's really valuable to have that testing. Specifically in regards to these boss powers, what we really like about introducing new powers every season or in this season is how they really like tinker with your build. You say like, oh hey, I'm playing this
เพราะว่าจุดหนึ่งที่เดฟชอบมากในการเพิ่มพลังให้ผู้เล่นแต่ละซีซั่นคือผู้เล่นเอาไปทำบิลด์แปลกๆได้ไหม
That's really cool. One thing that we heard on the PTR
แต่หนึ่งอย่างที่ได้ยินจาก PTR ก็คือ
they were more than just a wrinkle, they were your entire build, right? They were really overshadowing
แทนที่มันจะเป็นส่วนประกอบของ build มันคือ build เลย
really feel like, oh, I'm a
แต่ทีมงานไม่อยากให้
you felt like you were a wandering death chess beam
build Dance of Night Rogue กลายเป็น wandering
every once in a while.
We want you to be the boss, but not that
นึกออกไหม
Maybe not quite
เป็น
that way.
เอาพลังนั้นมาทำ build เลย เช่น
Far
build
up
ชื่อ
scale, like
Lilith
make
Rogue
it
อะไร
powerful and impactful. It's definitely a fine line where we're trying to make sure that you notice them, you feel them, they are an important
อยากให้
part of
รู้
your
สึก
build.
ว่ามันเป็นส่วนประกอบสำคัญของ build แต่ไม่ใช่ build ทั้งหมด
Swung a little too far there, and so as updates from the PTR, we looked at adjusting the scaling because these powers scale up in their damage output based on your Paragon level. So the more you're kind of getting up into that late game, you're raising your Paragon level, they're going to be kind of scaling with you because the rest of your damage is going
พลังพวกนี้ปกติสเกลตามพารากอน
the damage there.
ก็มีการ nerf สเกลลงมาหน่อย
with you all the way up to Paragon level 300, which is very difficult to reach. It's a long grind to get up there. Now we're capping them at Paragon 200, which we think is a much more
ตอนนี้
reasonable
แคป
place to expect
ไว้แค่
to kind of get to
200
unlock that full
เพราะว่าน่าจะเป็นจุดที่คนเล่นไปได้ถึง
and
ง่าย
even
แล้ว
then,
ก็
we've reduced
ไม่
the
สเกลหลัง
scaling
นั้น
amount, so it's not quite as high as it will be. We still expect them to be impactful to your build. We just don't want them to absolutely dominate everything else that you're doing.
คิดว่าน่าจะยังมีผลกับ build แต่ว่าน่าจะไม่เป็นตัวชี้วัด build ละ
Most of what you want around Paragon 200, and the rest is sort of just gravy for people who just really want to push and grind. You're getting core stats, maybe some additive damage. You just wanted to sort of double down on that because I think that's something that's really important to us is making sure that you don't feel obligated to get to 300 and it's more just sort of a badassery.
Yeah. There were also a few specific powers that we decided to rework based on the way they were playing out on the PTR, specifically Andariel's Flaming Skull. The modifier on
เปลี่ยน
that
Andariel Flaming
the
Skull
previous version was applying many burn effects. It actually made burning sorcerer builds way too powerful. I believe something like 40 pit tiers higher than they really should be. We like powerful effects, but 40 pit tiers higher than you would otherwise have was too much. So it's kind of been completely reworked here. It's still very valuable for dot-based builds, those damage over times, but it's just got more multiplicative damage rather than kind of this exponentially growing the way it was before. Similarly with Uravar's Lob Bombs, we updated the cooldown reduction on it. Previously, it was granting
แล้วก็อีกสกิลหนึ่งสกิลอุริวาบอสใหม่
It says your ultimate was reduced by,
Lob Bomb
I believe it was 5 seconds. As we'll talk about a little bit later, we found that we like that you get to spam your ultimates in some builds. That was just empowering it a little too easily. And so we've adjusted it to be a flat 15% cooldown reduction rather than that like flat amount of 5 seconds off on the ultimates there.
เป็น 15% ของคูลดาวน์แทนที่จะเป็น 5 วิเพราะบางสกิล 5 วิมันมีผลเยอะเกิน
In terms of making Torment a little bit harder and some of the changes to these boss powers is really like we want progression to feel meaningful and challenging and something that you can work towards. We don't really like when some of these effects just sort of short circuit that entire journey and you slap it in and then now you're in Torment 4 and the game is done. So it's really about trying to build that satisfying journey to becoming a god. Like we like that you can become a god in one-shot stuff and Diablo is a power fantasy. That's what Diablo needs to do. But we don't like when it happens too frequently. Blink and you miss it.
Right.
Yeah, it really cheapens the experience. If you find one item or one power and like, oh, game's over. Now what do I do? Right? That's that we feel like we fail to deliver on that
โอเค
power fantasy.
ทีมงานรู้สึกว่าเพสเกมตัวเองเร็วไป progress เกิดขึ้นเร็วไป เป็นความรู้สึกที่ดีเพราะผมก็รู้สึกอย่างนั้นเหมือนกัน
Definitely.
Cool. Well, I think that wraps it up for Season 8 specific items related to Belial's return. Derek, I'm going to say thanks to Charles and Colin as well, though I'm actually about to throw it back over to Charles, but thank you for running us through that. Again, like all the changes that we're talking about from PTR, and just a reminder on what PTR is. PTR is our public test round. That's something that we do before the
PTR คือ test server นะครับ
It's
ถ้าใครที่ไม่เข้าใจว่ามันคืออะไร
to really test things. It's kind of like our form of like early access, you could say, where people can jump in, they can test specific things, and then we can make changes for when the live season actually hits. So there are going to be additional PTR changes that we're going to be talking about because we're going to jump into classes again. I'm
พูด
going
เรื่อง
to
คลาส
throw it
บ้าง
over to Charles, and Charles will talk a little bit more of all the class
Charles
changes that are
done.
coming with Season 8, and of
พูด
course
เรื่องคลาสที่จะมา
the
หน่อย
changes coming from PTR as well.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk about, just to carry on about some of the balancing philosophy around what we're looking at when we do these PTRs, specifically from the class balance side, we're often looking at a lot of the new items,
Concept
the new builds, and
คือ
kind of the reworks that we've done to classes. Whenever we make a new season, we say, hey, we're going to target certain areas and like look at certain play styles of a class and really make sure those are hitting the mark. And so when we're looking at adjusting from the PTR to live, which is what we're going to talk about today, most of the changes are really targeted around the new content that's coming out or the new builds we're trying to target and empower to make sure they're really hitting the mark. That's not to say we don't appreciate feedback about the entire class or any other skill. It's just that given the scope of what we're looking at from a PTR, we're trying to stay really focused on what we think will have the highest impact on the actual seasonal release.
การเปลี่ยนน่าจะมี impact กับ build แต่ละ build คลาสแต่ละคลาสมากที่สุดไม่ได้แปลว่าคลาสที่เหลือไม่สนใจหรือ build ที่เหลือไม่สนใจ
We kind of want to make sure that that's like a stable thing that you can theory craft before a season launches. You get to see all the new changes, and we're just going to sort of fine tune the things that we've already talked about.
Yeah. Absolutely. We don't want to go, hey, here's a PTR, and then completely upheaval everything as we go.
ไม่อยากลือทุกอย่างเพราะว่าอยากให้คนที่ลอง PTR ได้โครง build ไปแล้วยกเว้นอันที่โกงจริงๆถึงจะปรับ
Of course, what I'm going to be talking about for each class is really just a high-level overview of the adjustments we're making.
นี่ไม่ใช่การเปลี่ยนแปลงทั้งหมดแต่เป็นการเปลี่ยนแปลงที่สำคัญ
You're going to have to check out the patch notes, which should be going
ต้องอ่าน
live
patch
later
note
today, right after the stream. All right, so let's hop into the first class, which will be
คลาสแรก
Barbarian.
เริ่มที่
So
Barbarian
with Barbarian,
Whirlwind
since
buff
the PTR, we
Executioner
really wanted to play
aspect
up the Barbarian
cap
fantasy of
scale แล้วก็
hitting
Mighty
enemies with
Troll
weapons, right? We Barbarians in the past have done a lot of earthquakes and dust devils, and that's really cool and really fun. But it does lead to a little bit of a disconnect between how the raw physicality of a barbarian. And so with that in mind, Whirlwind in particular was one that was falling behind, and so it's got actually a really massive buff since PTR, about a 60% increased base damage, as well as upgrades to one of its upgrades that makes it the bleed that it applies is much more impactful now. And so really, if you're using Whirlwind for Whirlwind's sake, it's going to be much more impactful. Absolutely, it's a really fun.
ถ้าใช้ Whirlwind เพื่อทำ damage ด้วย Whirlwind จะเก่งขึ้นมาก
Now with all these buffs, it'll be much closer to being that competitive
ๆ
build.
60% base damage bleed แรงขึ้น
Adjusted Executioner's aspect. This is a legendary that was really good for the Earthquake builds, was one of the primary scalers there. We have capped the scaling on that. Everyone knows Earthquake Barbarian was really good in Season 7. That's what I personally played. It was a ton of fun. It was awesome. Even on the PTR after we made some adjustments, it was still kind of above that mark. And we were really hesitant to let the exact same build
ขนาดเนิร์ฟไปแล้วใน PTR ก็ยังเก่งมากๆอยู่ก็เลยขับ aspect นี้ Executioner เพื่อทำให้ build Earthquake ที่สเกลจาก aspect นี้สเกลได้ต่ำลง
you don't feel obligated to play the exact same way season over season because there's so many cool ways of playing classes, and we just want to make sure that that is the case. So with that in mind, we're capping the scaling on that, which should hopefully keep Earthquake builds at an appropriate spot and not as dominant as they had been. And of course, we've got some new items coming in the season. These ones were tested on PTR, and we've made some adjustments to them as well, but they mainly target Mighty Throw. We did see that on the PTR, Mighty Throw was very mighty and was led to some really cool clips.
Mighty Throw โกงมาก
Some of our late game bosses where you build
one shot late game boss
Mighty Throw and just kind of chunks their health total all the way down.
A little too mighty.
Yes, a lot of fun. We love that play style. Just the exact number tuning maybe was a bit high, so we've brought some of that down. But we still think
Scale
that,
damage ลง
it's going to be really compelling to play Mighty Throw next season. Let's
แต่
take a
คิดว่า
look
ยัง
at
น่าจะเป็น
some
build
of
ที่
the
น่าเล่นอยู่
I'm referring to here. You've got the Bane of
Bane Hand of
which is
Ayat
going
Gen
to, every 12
Mighty
seconds,
Throw
you
บวก
Mighty Throw and
4-6
deals
Crit
a ton of
Damage
influence
Fury
with
per
one
sec
part
cooldown
one-shot build.
ทุก
As well as
12 วิว
the aspect of delayed extinction,
12 วิ Mighty Throw ระเบิด
changes
Damage
up how you think about
คูณ
Mighty Throw,
600%
no longer reducing its cooldown with cooldown
Damage
reduction, you're
คูณ
actually just
7
increasing its damage kind of multiplicatively, and so it really says, hey, one big moment, you make the throw, it hits super hard, and it's a ton of fun. So we've got these new items, and so really look forward to seeing how
Mighty
how you
Throw
play
แล้วก็
with
Steel
Mighty Throw.
Grabs ได้ Multi
All right,
จาก
we have
cooldown
a flip of
reduction
this in action, right? It's just it's still quite strong against a lot of these smaller enemies.
Wow.
With the triple Mighty Throw here, you're going to clear out the pack pretty darn quick.
ว้าว
All right, let's move on to the next class. We've got the Druid.
Druid.
Druid, the big change here since the PTR is a big buff to Earth and Might.
Buff Earth and Might key passive.
And in the past, all it did was it granted you a bunch of resource and gave you guaranteed critical
เดิมคือ
strikes.
ได้
We do know that as
มา
you
นา
get
ละ
into the late game, you're probably
แล้วก็ได้
getting
คริ
close
ต
to maxing out your critical strike chance anyway, and so
Crit chance
it never really found a lot of footing in late game builds. Because of that, it was kind of redundant with a lot of the
แต่ว่า late
your
game
other
crit
sides.
chance มันแคป
Now
ง่าย
we've
อยู่แล้ว
added an
ก็เลยเปลี่ยน
additional, multiplicative damage for your critical strikes when Earth and Might procs, and so we think that's going to be really compelling.
บัฟคริต
to
มัลติ
make it
เข้าไปด้วย
competitive with other key passives. Additionally, Druid is definitely the class that has struggled the most with early game resource.
ต้นเกมเล่นยากก็เลย
Make sure that
เพิ่ม
early game
resource
feels a little bit
หา
smoother,
ได้
some buffs
มาก
from
ขึ้น
the resource
เพื่อให้
generation.
ไล่สกิลได้ถี่ขึ้นในช่วงต้นเกม
With the Earth and Might buff, also comes a buff to Gatlin's Birthright.
แล้วก็ buff Gatlin's
unique
Birthright
talent that really
unique
encourages
หมวกใหม่
you to stay in human form. We've had
หมวกที่อยากให้ดูอิดเล่นฟอร์ม
be a werewolf all the
ร่าง
time,
คน
or be a werebear all the time. Human form druid, the kind of non-shape-shifting one, felt a little bit left out. So we've got this new unique. Let's take a look at it here. That
move speed ใน human form humanity ในขณะอยู่ human form
you're going to build up to Anima of the Forest. And
ทุก
when you do that, it grants you
200 nature
both Storm and
magic
Earth
critical
Might
strike หรือ
passive
40
for a time.
ได้ Anima of the
And
Forest
Earth
15 วิ
Might being buffed up means Gatlin's Birthright is buffed up even more. We also increase
ซึ่ง
the
Anima of the
duration
Forest
effect. It
ทำให้
previously
Keystone
up
อัตโน
until
มัติ
10
2 อัน
seconds.
Perfect Storm กับ
So it had
Earthen
a little
Might
bit lower uptime, and we just think going up to 15 seconds.
และ Earthen Might เพิ่งบัฟก็แปลว่าบัฟอันนี้ด้วย
And it also stacks up against bosses. We know that fighting bosses is going to be an important part of the season, and so this is just much more usable since the PTR in those situations.
Very appropriate.
And of course, with aspect of impending deluge, we're talking about nature magic skills in human form. Storm Strike fits the bill there, and so this is going to be a nice piece to the puzzle for this style of build moving forward. I think we got a little video clip of Gatlin's Birthright in action.
ขอดู
We've
หน่อย
got your buff bar with your buffs active as
คริตแต่ละครั้งก็จะได้สแต็กเพิ่มขึ้น
and are doing these nature magic critical strikes. You're eventually going to trigger all 3 key passes at once.
200 ปึ้ง Key passive ติดทุกอัน
And the perfect storm. That'll really make a strong moment of power. You see all those buffs active on your bar down there. All right, next up we've got the Necromancer.
ในโค
So for Necromancer, the big story of Necro on the
Blood
PTR,
Wave
I guess
buff
from last season, was
Blood
that
Land
Blood Wave
สเปรด
was
ตลอด
pretty good.
Vampiric Curse เป็น Curse
Is an okay skill. It might have been one of those ones that was kind of short-circuiting the progression into the end game. Maybe a little too good. So on the PTR, we did take several big swings at Blood Wave. We really wanted to make sure that we did not kind of repeat that situation. We do think we overswung just a little bit, so there's a little bit of a numeric buff up to Blood Wave just to make sure, because we don't want to completely eviscerate and kill these builds outright. We want that to just bring them back to a healthy spot. And so with that, we've kind of compensated Blood Wave a little bit since the PTR. One of the other big changes we made on the PTR was a rework to Blood Lance. Blood Lance was one of our best AoE-based core skills in the past, but it was like pretty terrible at single target situations. And so we did a little bit of a rework where it gained some single target viability at the expense of AoE. And we definitely think we swung a little too hard and killed its AoE a little too much. So we've caused it to be always spreading, which helps it to ramp up a little bit faster in those AoE situations. So we think that'll kind of bring it to a more healthy balance compared to where it was in terms of the AoE
เมื่อก่อนบัตรแลน
target
LE โอเคแต่เป้าเดียวห่วยก็เลยบัฟเป้าเดียวแล้วเนิร์ฟ LE กลายเป็นว่าเนิร์ฟเยอะไป ตอนนี้ก็เลยบัฟกลับมา
Turns out it's in the name. It just made sense. That's particularly relevant for the new unique item. We can take a look at that, the Sanguivar Blade of Zir. This
Zanguvar
is the
Blade
new
of
unique
Seer,
item in the season that
Skeleton
causes
Mastery,
your summons, your skeleton warriors
Summon
and mages and golem to
Damage,
apply vampiric curse to
วาง
enemies.
Vampiric Curse ใส่ศัตรู
By doing that, you're going to stack up this vampiric curse effect, and when you cast Army of the Dead, it's going to unleash the vampiric curse. We think it's a really cool playstyle. Of course, the curse now interacts with all of your curse effects, like damage to cursed enemies, or when you apply a curse, do a thing. It all works with that. And of course, this item itself was buffed up a few times since the PTR as well. Its multiplicative scalar at the bottom has been increased, as well as some of the affixes on it have gotten some improvements as well to really make sure that this style of play really hits the mark. Additionally, we've got a new legendary aspect, the aspect of service and sacrifice. I really love the playstyle of this. It causes your skeleton warriors to explode on death, and they lose health while in combat. So they kind of are expendable, army fodder, while your mages are a bit more resilient and kind of providing that constant backline. You're summoning these warriors to go run in and die. Provides an interesting little difference in playstyle. And this one also was just a little bit under the mark on the PTR, and so we've increased the raw damage output that the skeleton warriors are doing since PTR. I think we got a clip of some of these in action, right? So you got your warriors here, they're running up. Even though they're not taking too many hits, they do eventually die in combat and do a little explosion to clear out. If you stacked up all of your vampiric curse, when you cast Army of the Dead, you just get this like chain of these skeletons spawning out from you that run out and also kind of contribute to the damage output of that Army of the Dead. I think it's really cool and adds a bigger moment when you press that Army of the Dead effect. We also got a bit on Bloodlance. I kind of alluded to it earlier here. This is the updated tooltip. It'll now always spread its lanced effect, that additional debuff that causes its damage to arc to other enemies. On the PTR, it would only spread if you had already lanced them. Now it'll always do it. It's kind of always a 2-target cleave effect. So that should just help with kind of ramping up its damage. And then if you're hitting somebody who already has the debuff, it deals double damage. And that really helps its bossing, that single target capabilities.
ไม่เคยเล่นบัตรแล้วรอดสักลีกเลย
Oh yeah, poke him in the eye many times.
One of his many eyes. There's a lot of them.
Exactly.
You need a lot of blood lances.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the clip here real quick, right? So even as you're going into the pack, it's just you're going to get that lance debuff, that like red glow with like kind of arcing lines between enemies, just going to ramp up that much faster, and really helps you clear out packs just a little bit quicker than it was before. All right, let's move on to the Rogue. On the Rogue, there are a couple adjustments. One was a change to the way Shadow Clone and its rank 5 upgrade worked. Previously, when you got Shadow Clone to rank 5, when you cast it, it became a cutthroat skill, which was a little weird and unintuitive in terms of like what did it interact with? Did it count as a cutthroat skill for various effects?
กดไล่ Shadow Clone แล้วนับเป็น Cutthroat
to kind of clarify that and just make Shadow Clone always baseline cutthroat skill, which means anything that your Shadow Clone like mimics from you. So if you cast, penetrating shot and your Shadow Clone mimics it, the Shadow Clone's version counts as a cutthroat skill.
ต่อให้ใช้สกิลธนูแล้ว Shadow Clone ใช้สกิลธนูตามก็นับเป็น Cutthroat.
Just kind of a nice little quality of life there. Death Trap was kind of the big story of Rogue, I think, on the PTR, where Death Trap was really good. It was a little too good. It had a number of reworks come into it, and specifically on Scoundrel's Leather unique, that caused you to teleport to the position where you're throwing your Death Trap, which was really cool and really fun, but ultimately it meant that the build kind of solved too many problems right away. Just like we had talked about previously with Bloodwave and some other builds, it was a little too easy to do everything. You had damage, you had cooldown reduction, you had teleport and mobility, you pulled in enemies with Death Trap. And so with that in mind,
สรุปว่า Death Trap perform ดีไปบวกกับ Unique ใช้แล้ววาร์ปไปที่ Death Trap.
Yeah, especially with the Uravar bombs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we talked about the Uravar bombs and how we're adjusting that away from flat reduction. We also just increased the base cooldown on Death Trap by a little bit and reduced some of its sources of cooldown reduction. We still anticipate once you're really getting into that hyper late game and your build's super optimized, you get the right master working and tempers, you're still going to get to that state. It's just going to take a little longer to get there. It's not quite as trivial to be chain spamming that. And also we have removed the teleport from Scoundrel's Leather when you cast it. That was something that kind of just put it over. It checked too many boxes, and we know that Rogue is already one of our most mobile classes. You've got Dash, you've got Shadow Step, you've got plenty of other ways of moving around the battlefield that we felt like this was a little too much for this build in particular. So we've done a number of things to tune that back, and we think it'll still be a very strong build. We just want to make sure that it doesn't really trivialize the game like it was on the PTR.
Yeah, I'm still going to play this.
Absolutely. It's still going to be a great build, I am sure.
I play only Rogue. lately. I mean, I have a rogue tattoo, so it's like, it makes sense. Things I did not expect to hear on a stream, but yeah, you call it. But yeah, I plan on playing rogue. So
nice. Well, there's also some new items that talk to the other trap in Rogue's kit, Poison Trap, the Bands of Icarus Rose. We can take a look at that here.
ไอเทมใหม่ถุงมือ Poison Trap ทำดาเมจเต็ม3 วิได้โบนัสจากอัปเกรดทั้งหมดได้โบนัสจาก Combo Point Inner Sight Preparation
the first 3 seconds rather than a long 9-second duration, so you really get much higher DPS, benefits from Let's upgrades, which are even more empowered, and it benefits from all of your class mechanics, your combo points, inner sight, or preparation. So if you're playing Poison Trap, this is just like really makes it a marquee skill, and I'm really excited to see the kind of builds that emerge with this new unique. Similarly, the legendary aspect of contamination adds a little bit of an extra burst to it, which can increase your poison damage and rewards you for building up a more critical strike chance. I think we've got a clip of this in action as well. And this is like probably my favorite clip in here because you just kind of put the enemy to sleep. He just falls down and stays down because one of the upgrades on Poison Trap knocks down an enemy. And with Bands of Icarus Rose, it's going to increase that knockdown timer. It's going to double that knockdown timer. And so it can really, really put enemies to sleep. And if you got enough DPS, you're going to...
มองมันเล็กไปเปล่าวะ
All right, let's move on to the Sorcerers. On the Sorceress, there's
Sorceress
a
มีคลาสนี้ด้วย
number of bigger changes here. The biggest one probably being the Rework to Avalanche, which was one of the key passives that talked
เปลี่ยน
to
Key
Frost
Passive
skills.
Avalanche
Previously, it was a lucky hit effect that would give you a free cast. We do
Lucky
not
hit
really
แล้วก็
find that
spam cast
super compelling
ของ
or
สกิล
super empowering. So we'll take a look at that in just a moment. The new reworked version. We also smoothed out Familiar, the Conjuration skill. We smoothed
Familiar
out animation quite
Summon
a bit.
Minion
There's a lot of
Smooth
feedback,
animation
which is, around it. It just didn't feel right to press. The game feel there, you know, you press the button, you're like, it took too long to come out. Your character was kind of rooted in place for a little too long. So we've sped that up a little bit, so it feels much smoother to weave into your play style.
Yeah, it felt really sticky with the amount of charges we gave you too. You start with 3 and you're just sort of stuck there. Like,
yeah, you're like, I want to cast all 3, but then it was like I felt like I was just being rooted in place for to cast the skill. So we've definitely updated that. And of course, the new items are talking about ice shards quite a bit, and so we'll take a look at that in a moment. First, let's look at the Avalanche rework.
Avalanche Rework Frost Skill ใช้มานานน้อยลงทำดาเมจแรงขึ้น
Now it's just going to always affect all of your
แรงขึ้น
They're going to cost less mana
โดยพื้นฐานด้วยใส่ศัตรูที่ติด
And then
vulnerable
if you apply vulnerable to the enemies, you're going to get even
เป็น
more
Key Passive ที่ดูไม่น่า
effects.
ส
So
น
this
ใจ
is
เลย
really
แค่แรงขึ้น
right along the lines of what Frost Skills wants to be doing.
ก็คือมันก็แรงมาก
It's
อะ
really looking to when you had like some of the complexity in the previous version of Avalanche, we didn't really feel like it added that much to the gameplay, and so we looked at where we can just empower the build, simplify it a little bit in terms of gameplay, because we didn't really feel like the old version was really hitting that mark.
Yeah, it's also true frost and true cold, which we haven't really seen too much of.
Right, absolutely. Next, we got the new items, the Hail of Verglass. This is
Hail of
the
Verglass,
unique helm
Ice
that
Shards
is
spread
really potent for your Ice Shards build. Ice Shards are going to be spreading out
แรง
and
ขึ้น
dealing a
ทุก
spread
ครั้ง
of
ที่โดน
damage
ศัตรู
rather than just a single straight line. It kind of helps with its AoE potential. You do more damage if you're hitting them with multiple Ice Shards, and of course you get even more. So really an interesting way to update the playstyle there. And Shivering Aspect is going to
น่าเล่นปะ
give you
น่า
some
เล่นอยู่
more
นะ
multiplicative damage based on how much you're chilling enemies, once again, playing into the cold builds, but also by how much you've staggered a boss. We know that this has been a pain point across all of the classes where some of these bonuses to crowd-controlled enemies don't work on bosses, and of course being
เฮ้ย
Belial's
เดี๋ยว
return
ซีซั่นนี้ผม
with
จะ
the
เล่น
season
ซ
of
อดี
bosses,
วะ
we really want to make sure that many of these effects do in fact work against boss fights in a way that just makes sense, rather than feeling like, oh, I'm a crowd control based build. Now I'm suddenly I lose out on so many of these bonuses against bosses. We don't really want that to be the case. That's not the kind of play style we want to encourage. Where you feel punished for taking on bosses, and so many effects like Shivering Aspect do work against bosses in addition to crowd-controlled kind of normal enemies. And we've also got just a side-by-side comparison of familiars. So on the left, we got before. You can see how long it kind of takes you to cast all 3 and then to get moving afterwards. And on the right, the after version, much faster, much snappier animation, and you can get on the move and continue on with combat that much quicker. It's going to feel a lot better to play. All right, and the final class, we've got the Spiritborn. So the Spiritborn, probably the biggest thing that we've updated since the PTR was a bug fix on the unyielding hits aspect. This is one of the most popular legendary aspects that Spiritborn players have been using. It increases your weapon damage, like your weapon, like raw damage just goes up. And so you would think, hey, that increases all of my damage output because everything is kind of based on your weapon. That was true for most cases, but there was a few interactions where it wasn't properly working. Notably,
แก้บั๊กให้ unyielding hit มอดที่เพิ่มเบสดาเมจให้อาวุธแต่มันไม่เพิ่มให้กับบางสกิล
And also with the new unique, the Sunbird's Gorget, it was not properly working there. So now it will be working. Now it's a really powerful multiplier to work into those builds, and we think that's going to help quite a bit to make sure those builds are competitive. We've also heard the feedback that basic skill builds have not really hit the mark, and so Sepizontek, that's the unique that really empowers those basic builds. We've given some numeric buffs there just to make sure that just give them that little bit of a bump to bring them up to par. And finally, wanted to highlight those new items and reworks that we were talking about, the Sunbird's Gorget. Let's take a look at this new
Sunbird Gorget.
This is really cool.
หยิบ Storm Feather เมื่อไหร่จะสร้างพายุไฟรอบตัว
And as you pick them up,
ทุก 5 additional Storm Feather แรงขึ้น
the more Storm Feathers you pick up. So you really want to be spawning a bunch of them and then moving around and collecting them.
Storm Feather นับเป็นจากัว Eagle จากัว
And the Storm Feathers and the Firestorm benefit from all of your skill tags, all of your Jaguar skills, your Eagle skills, and the Storm Feather tag. Really a very cool alternative playstyle here. Rather than just casting basic or core skills, you're focusing on Storm Feathers instead. Additionally, we've got a new aspect to buff up the Rushing Claw skill, which really struggled to find its place. We've also got a little bit of a rework to Rushing Claw, some of its upgrades that we'll show in a moment. First, let's take a video clip on the Sunbirds here, right? You got your line of Storm Feathers all in a row. You go and you pick them up, and you get this cool little Firestorm around you. And the more you pick up, the more you spawn, the stronger and bigger it gets up to a cap, and it can really help with kind of that AoE damage to clear out packs.
RF
I alluded a little bit to the Rushing Claw rework. So we've got the 2 upgrades on the skill tree. We've got Invasive Rushing Claw. This is what was probably the most popular one that was previously being used, where when you run out of charges of it, you will consume 4 stacks of Ferocity to kind of refresh the charges. In this case, you're kind of constantly spamming this button over and over again. It's really like your primary skill of your build. Now there's an alternative playstyle with Poised Rushing Claw, which gives it much increased maximum charges, but when you cast it, it does consume all of those charges. So those charges are no longer how many times can I cast the skill. It's really kind of a stacking damage multiplier, is how many charges. So if you have cooldown reduction or ways of reducing your cooldown, you're actually stacking up damage on a Rushing Claw, and it's going to hit a much larger area. So let's take a look. We've got Poised Rushing Claw here. This is the one big hit, right? It hits 3 times the area, clears right through a pack, but you can't hit it that often. Alternatively, you've got Invasive Rushing Claws, which kind of slice through the pack. You constantly have this available to you as it refreshes its cooldown, or you save up for this one big moment. So really interesting, 2 different ways of playing the skill now.
Yeah, I love when we're able to actually do that, where a skill can actually function in a completely different way. I think that's some of the best work that we have on our skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I love just giving you alternative ways of playing it, like the same base effect, but just really recontextualizing what you're looking for in items.
ซีซั่นนี้มันน่าเล่นทุกคลาสเลยว่ะพูดจริงนะ
or just in
คนดูรู้ไหมปกติผมเล่นคลาสอะไร
I think that's where some of our best gameplay comes out.
Yeah, I think we want to be doing more of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Charles, for walking us through all the classes.
ยกเว้น Barbarian ผมอยากเล่นทุกคลาสที่เหลือ
Of course, the PTR changes that we kind of went over a few of them really quickly here. Again, everyone will be able to see this earpiece, guys, it's fallen off like 10 times, and when the camera's been on there, now I'm gonna fish for it for like 10 minutes. It's just gone. You can check out the patch notes immediately after this stream. We'll have it on Diablo4.com, and that is pretty extensive. It goes through every single thing that we've talked about, plus more that we couldn't fit into the stream because we'd probably keep you here for 8 hours if we just went over all the patch notes specifically. So make sure to check that out. Of course, with a new season comes a lot of changes that are coming within the systems as well. And so, Colin, do you want to walk us through some of the big changes that we have coming?
Yeah, we cherry-picked some things just to keep it quick. So
ทุกอย่างอยู่ใน patch note แต่การเปลี่ยนแปลง
which definitely
ที่จะเกิดขึ้น
wasn't adjusted, but that's
มาฟัง
okay.
กัน
I remember some of the things.
เอา conduit shrine ออก
we
เยี่ยม
removed conduit shrine just for this season. We heard feedback that maybe it wasn't the greatest of shrines in previous seasons.
Ancestral Whisper กลับมา
He was just screwing you over. So we're just taking it offline.
Really a shrine.
Yeah, it's not really a powerful thing. What if you just couldn't cast your skills for 15 seconds? So we removed it. We're going to take it offline. We're going to rework it into something more powerful and better. So look forward to that in the future. We also brought back the ancestral whisper caches from season 7. This is just sort of an example of things that we're trying to pull in from previous seasons that we think are working really well. I think it's going to pair nicely with the apparition incursion whispers. So sometimes you're going to get a really badass cache out of it. Obel Gambler. What does that mean? So we've buffed the shit out of the Obel Gambler. So generally in Torment Plus, when you buy an entire inventory full of loot from the Gambler, at least generally one of them should be ancestral, sometimes more. So it's going to be mostly legendaries that actually come out of the Obels. So I think it's going to be a pretty massive buff. The second thing that's not listed here is that we've also made leveling glyphs easier from the PTR. So now you can actually level glyphs at like a 50 pit tier deficit. It's just out of chance. So if you're not able to get to pit tier 100, you're still able to grind through and eventually level those glyphs up. We think that this just is a little bit more forgiving, and it makes sure that like you don't necessarily have to play an S tier build to actually level up those glyphs all the way. You just are going to take longer. And then the second thing, or I keep saying the second thing, the other thing that we've done is we actually didn't talk about this in the PTR, but we changed tempering, and I just wanted to say because I think it's amazing. Tempering will remember the recipe now, so you're able to just sort of hit it. I think that's
searching through the list and then like, you know, going back over every single
QL เล็กๆ Temper จำได้ว่าครั้งที่แล้วกดอะไรไปจะได้ไม่ต้องลากใหม่
flow again. So yeah, we've made that a lot better. So I think like that covers a lot of the sort of cherry-picked cool things that I thought was worth talking about.
Yeah, most definitely. And then I know we have some other big changes that are coming. Maybe this is the second thing again.
I remember the second one, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I totally forgot to put this on there. So in the PTR, we took some pretty big swings on leveling progression and torment progression. And I just want to sort of rehash what you're saying, which is the PTR is a place to test. It's a place to test. We might put things in that we're not necessarily committed to because we want to test it. So your feedback is super valuable. It's a discussion always, right, with the community and the players. We ourselves play the PTRs to feel things out. It's a really good place for us to do that because we're able to play with some of you all. So, you know, might be me on the other side of the screen griefing you or something. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. So I think one of the things we did is tone back the leveling speed reduction. So it's a little bit slower, but it's not as slow as it was in the PTR. We just want to sort of smooth out that leveling experience. It's not really
เลเวลจะเร็วกว่าตอนที่คนเทสใน PTR
The other thing we did also change is the
ตัวลดลง
torment pit scaling. So we've nerfed that from what it was
Nerf
on
torment
PTR,
แล้วก็
but
pit
it's still a little
scaling
bit stronger than it was on season 7. Again, really
มันเก่ง
this is
กว่า
sort of
ตอน
us
ซีซั่น
trying to find the
7เยอะ
sweet spot of introducing
โดนเนิร์ฟใน PTR
seasonal
ก็ยังจะ
power.
เนิร์ฟลงมา
We
อีก
also want to make sure torment progression feels as good as it did in season 6, where you sort of have this like journey and sort of challenge that you need to face to overcome. We think unlocking that power and progressing through our game just is that much sweeter when you hit that sweet spot of actually having to work for some of this stuff. So we've pared it back. You can think about it as Torment 1 is about a pit tier harder than season 7, and Torment 4 is about 6 to 7 pit tiers harder than it was on season 7 coming in season 8. So we have pared back. Feedback was super helpful. I know everyone was losing their minds that we made the game doubly hard. That's just sort of how we balance things on the PTR is we either double or half it. It just helps us sort of lock in a good middle ground. We also find that if we buff it like 10%, it's like, did we even change anything?
You don't know.
Yeah, and we don't want to sort of take an approach where we like stealthily make the game
แล้วก็
harder.
อย่าตกใจเวลาเจอคอนเทนต์ที่ยากเกินไปใน PTR หรือง่ายเกินไปเพราะว่าเวลาเนิร์ฟหรือบัฟ
The second thing.
ทำเพื่อทดลอง
The second thing is
และบัฟแรง
we have some
เนิร์ฟ
big
แรง
changes that are coming to the season journey as well. And I know you wanted to talk about
Season Journey มีการปรับปรุง
with the changes that we'll talk about after this, with the introduction of Reliquary, we've actually taken an opportunity to separate out the season's journey from the Battle Pass. So that also means
แยก
all
Season
the
Journey ออก
ashes
มาจาก
that you would
Battle
earn
Pass
have been taken out of the Battle Pass. You no
แปล
longer
ว่าไม่มี
sort of have
Ash
this
แล้ว
complicated system where you're doing the season's journey to earn favor to then progress the Battle Pass to then try and get your ashes, but those are level locked. It was just too many things. So we've taken it out. Now it's very clear.
แยกอ
And
อก
I
เป็น
think the season's
UI
journey
ของ
is
ตัวเอ
going
ง
to
เล
feel
ย
a lot more rewarding in that now all the ashes are earned through the season's journey. We also have individual rewards for each objective within a chapter. And we've also just refreshed the UI, so we're able to compact and sort of consolidate some of the objectives into a really clear sort of singular objective. You'll notice, like, if you put on your glasses, I have to like lean in to actually read some of these things, but you'll notice that some of these objectives have sub-objectives, and it just sort of better encapsulates what we are asking you to do. So I think this is going to be a pretty big win for the overall system. It lets us evolve it a little bit more now that it's detached from the Battle Pass, and I think it's just overall a much cleaner and rewarding experience.
Yeah, most definitely. I know that the season's blessings being moved into season journey and like being less complicated when it was in the battle pass was a big thing we've heard from some players, because I know there's points where we actually had moments where sometimes maybe a player would end up getting a season blessing or so just buying like an accelerator or whatever. So this now completely detaches it from it, which is a really big thing that we wanted to hit on, especially with feedback from players. So thank you, Colin, for walking us through. There's more changes in the patch notes that Colin hit on here. So again, check them out afterwards.
อย่าลืมเช็คแปดโน้ต
One thing we did want to talk about, and this is kind of alluding to what Colin was talking about beforehand with the season journey, is the reliquary itself.
Reliquary.
If you guys actually read the blog earlier this week for season 8, the reliquary is a brand new system that is being added into Diablo 4. It actually starts with season 8 specifically and will be in seasons going forward.
เป็นคอนเทนต์ถาวรที่กำลังจะเพิ่มเข้ามาในเกม
The whole entire battle pass system. It gives players a lot more control, a little bit more choice on exactly rewards that they want. Plus, it gives more variety in the actual rewards that they're going to be getting. I was not. We actually have a video for the reliquary.
ระบบ Battle Pass แบบใหม่
I was not planning on hosting today. Marcus is actually out sick today, so get well, Marcus. Have a smoothie. So I am hosting, and Marcus was supposed to throw to this video, which is done by myself. So I will be throwing it to myself.
ก็คืออดัม
A little bit more about Reliquary.
แต่พิธีกรตอนแรกจะไม่ใช่อดัม
better understanding of
มันก็เลยจะดูแปลกๆนิดนึง
Hi everyone. I'm thrilled to share the exciting changes coming to Season 8 Belial's Return with the Reliquary system.
Reliquary คืออะไร
This refresh of the Battle Pass system puts choice at the forefront, allowing you to select the order in which you unlock rewards from different catalogs. You alone will determine how to spend the favor you earn from slaying demons and completing
ได้
quests
แต้มแล้วเลือกได้ว่าจะเอารางวัลหน้าไหนก่อน
picking rewards that speak most to your character's fantasy. Now we're going to look at the features of the system, how to unlock rewards from it, and what you can expect to find in each reliquary.
Battle Pass Reliquary Overview
In the Battle Pass reliquaries, you will find individual catalogs you can earn rewards from, each one being a reliquary. With the launch of the upcoming season, Belial's Return, you will have these Battle Pass reliquary options: Belial's Return, weapons, beasts, and armor. Each reliquary contains cosmetic rewards to customize your wanderer. To earn these rewards, players will need to acquire favor, which is gained by killing monsters and completing quests. Each time you fill a bar, you acquire 1 favor token. You can hold up to 99 favor tokens at a time and must spend some before you're able to earn more. Also note that up to 99 favor tokens do carry over from season to season if you don't spend it, giving you a head start on next season's reliquaries. Let's dive a little deeper by checking out Belial's Return, a Battle Pass reliquary available for everyone on season launch. Here you will choose the order in which rewards are unlocked. Items in a reliquary can be claimed in whatever order you desire, and you can claim items for any reliquary while it's available. So if you want this badass Celestian mount before the Star-Crossed Path Town portal, the power of choice is in your hand. You may have noticed one item in the above reliquary has a star icon on it. This is a bonus reward. These rewards are automatically unlocked once you have claimed all other items in the specific
ถ้ากด
reliquary.
ทั้งหมดในเซตแล้วจะได้อันสุดท้าย
Bonus
อัตโน
rewards
มั
are
ติ
just that, a bonus, and don't require favor to claim.
และไม่ใช่
Remember to claim
favor
them
ด้วย
as soon as they are unlocked. Wanderers who complete all Battle Pass reliquaries will receive the pieces needed to arm themselves in the menacing Guise of the Deceiver armor set.
Battle Pass Bundle
There will
Option
be 2 Battle Pass bundle options for players. The Premium Battle Pass bundle unlocks all 3 premium reliquaries at a discount, while the Deluxe Battle Pass bundle gives instant access to the bonus armor set and 2 additional rewards you won't find in other reliquaries. Lastly, Reliquaries introduce the ability for us to now create unique tie-ins for future events and IP collaborations. These are completely separate from the Battle Pass, and we're looking forward to creating special moments for all players out there. Let's go through our first example with our Diablo and Berserk collaboration coming soon. Our first collab reliquary will have a unique currency that players can acquire in-game called Behelots. This will roll out in early May, and we're looking forward to you gathering and earning Berserk-themed cosmetics. Events will generally be available for shorter periods of time, so you should check on this tab every now and then. Reliquaries launch with Season 8 Belial's Return. For more details, check out our Reliquary System section in the official Season 8 blog. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all in Sanctuary. Thanks, Adam, for the for the update on Reliquaries. It's very odd seeing myself on camera and having cut myself cut to myself for Reliquaries. But if you want to learn more about Reliquaries itself, we do have a pretty deep dive on it in our Season 8 blog, which was posted on Monday, so just go to Diablo4.com. You can check out Reliquaries. We're going to hear how Reliquaries feels with people when they jump into the game on Season 8, so let us know, jump in, try it out, see how it works out, and provide feedback, because we're always open to hearing about more related to anything related to Diablo 4. That's what I meant to say. So next up, one thing that we did want to talk about, and this kind of actually ties back into what I was talking about on the video, which is our first IP collab. This is something that we teased last week and we announced earlier this week that we're super stoked about, and this is the Berserk Diablo collab. It's kind of like
น่าจะเป็นจุดขายใหม่ของ D4 หลังจากนี้ก็คือคอลแลบกับซีซั่นต่างๆก็จะคอลแลบกับ IP อื่น
how well that melds in with the Diablo universe. So it's really, really cool. This is actually launching on May 6th. And again, it has an event reliquary with some cosmetics that are associated with it, as you guys saw in the video. And some of them are really, really cool. There's a ton of cool stuff for people to actually collect and of course, grab. And some of the items in the event reliquary that I mentioned on the video are here, including gear, banners for your actual character, markings on your character as well. And then there's other cosmetics available that will be available in the shop that are really, really cool.
อันนี้คืออันที่มากับ Reliquary แล้วก็มีอันที่ขาย
Berserk, which I believe we have here. We got
นี่
one,
คือเซตที่ขาย
the Necromancer, the Barb, and the Rogue. These look absolutely sick. That Necromancer one is ridiculous.
Metal.
Really, really cool. And then one other thing is, this is disturbing, but also awesome. And I'm going to butcher the name. This is Chimimoro? Yeah, Chimimoro from Berserk. Funny enough, a really popular character that doesn't appear much in the Berserk manga, but we also nickname him the Schnoz, is a pet that will also be available in Diablo 4 with the Berserk Diablo collab. It's adorable. It's disturbing.
Don't you just want to pick it?
And yeah, you want to pick the schnoz nose thing. It does actually have an animation where the booger is running out of the nose, which is even more adorable. Or
His
disturbing.
name is Chimimoro.
Chimimoro.
Or
Wuru.
no, we're butchering.
Now we're butchering
It's
it.
fine.
But yeah. So this is part of the Berserk collab. This is going to be running from May 6th through June 3rd. So make sure to actually check it out. So it'll be a little bit after the start of Season 8, because Season 8 will be starting on April 29th. One other thing that we did want to also call out
อีเวนต์ Berserk เริ่มหลังจากเริ่มนิดนึง ประมาณอาทิตย์
for
นึง
Season 8. We actually have a new weapon that will be available, and that will
มี
be
Twitch
from
drop
April 29th.
Support streamer
You essentially just have to watch 3 hours on any person that is streaming Diablo 4 during those time periods, and make sure that you have Twitch drops enabled and your accounts all connected and everything like that, and you'll end up getting a new weapon.
แล้วก็มีอันที่เสียตังค์
Cool, and we'll
ถ้า
show
สั
it
บ
here
แล้
in
ว
a
จะได้
second. Separately, we do have a support a streamer program that is going on that is also
อันนี้คืออันที่
tied
ฟรี
with Berserk, but this is the weapon here. It's the Marrow of the
หรืออันนี้
Pillars.
คือ
It's a
อันที่เสีย
two-handed
ตังค์
sword.
วะเนี่ย
Looks really sick. Super stoked for this one. And then we have a support a streamer. This one is gift or purchase just one sub to any content creator.
อันนี้คือ1
streaming
ซับ
Diablo 4,
ใครก็ได้ที่สตรีม
between, May 6th and June
Diablo
3rd.
4
This
อยู่
is between the Berserk timelines, and you'll get this cool mount trophy, which is the skull behelit mount trophy that will be available May 6th through June 3rd. So Twitch Drops is coming back for the start of Season 8, and then we'll have a supporter streamer that will start with the Berserk collab. So a lot of cool stuff that is coming up, and that's all the content that we have here. I know, as we always do for every single stream, we do go into a Q&A. So I know we do want to talk about a few items within the Q&A. So
คนดูนะครับประมาณนี้แล้วกันนะสำหรับแคมป์ไฟคืนนี้นะเดฟอัปเดตนะส่วนมากก็เป็นฟีดแบ็กจาก PTR สิ่งที่จะเกิดขึ้น collaboration ระบบ Battle Pass แบบใหม่ ปรับปรุงคลาสต่างๆถ้าใครรอดูอ่าน patch note นะครับน่าจะเป็นคืนวันที่25นะครับก็คือหลังจากอัปโหลดคลิปนี้ไปแล้วสักพักหนึ่งนะครับพรุ่งนี้เดี๋ยวก็จะมาอ่าน patch note ก็ขอบคุณคนที่เข้ามาดูย้อนหลังด้วยนะครับลาไปก่อนสำหรับคนที่มาดูย้อนหลังสวัสดีครับ
if you're on Twitch, but if you do have questions in chat, make sure to ask them on Twitch. We have chat enabled there. We'll be taking them. There's a few things I know as we wait on questions kind of kicking in. And there goes the earpiece. There needs to be like a compilation of like the earpiece falling out of my ear this whole entire broadcast. But a few things that we did want to talk about. One was we had a roadmap that came out earlier this month that players actually saw. And something that, Colin and you and I have been talking about is a lot of players were they saw it and they're going like, hey, is this it? Is this all you guys have on the roadmap? And it's something that we just kind of wanted to reiterate that, we do plan on actually making updates to the roadmap as we progress through the timeline. And then, as we get further down the timeline, there are things that, will become more clear that we'll be updating within these updates that I think players are really hopeful to see. We've heard from some of the feedback, and some of those things I know we had chatted about were really around some things around skill trees. Yeah. Like, are we planning on doing updates to skill trees? Are there any updates to additional end game features? And I know you and I had chatted a little bit about it.
Yeah, we chat every day, right? They call me up at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just eating dinner. Just wanted to chat with Colin.
Yeah. And I'm like, let me wrap up this nightmare dungeon Adam. Yeah, let's talk about it. So I think something that we can talk about is the skill tree is something that we are definitely looking at in terms of doing some sort of major updates too. We also are taking a look at aspects because aspect skill tree sort of very similar in the same space. It is a lot of moving parts, so we want to get it right. So it is a pretty major thing that we need to take our time on and need to work through so it hits the players at a really high quality bar. So there are lots of things like that we are talking about and we're having conversations about. So really the roadmap to us is more just a starting point to help sort of flesh out and sort of continue the discussion with you all on how we're building Diablo 4.
Exactly, and as we progress through the timeline itself and we update the roadmap, some of these things that we just talked about here will be populated in there, and you guys will see exactly when those will end up landing. So really looking forward to updating that and keeping that updated for everyone out there so you guys have better clarity on exactly what's to come for Diablo 4. And there's a ton more to come, which we're super stoked about. Separately, I know that, the seasons themselves have been a big topic amongst players of because, for us, I think seasons has always been kind of a opportunity for us to really change Diablo 4 and learn more and more about what players really enjoy. We saw that with, past seasons where we've brought back things like Malignant Rings. We brought back things like Vampiric Powers. We even saw that in this stream where we're bringing back some of those the Whisper Ancestral caches and everything.
คนดูคิดว่าไงครับคนที่ยังเหลือคิดว่าเราจะกลับไปเล่น Diablo 4ไหมผมตัดสินใจแล้วว่าผมกลับผมยังตัดสินใจไม่ได้ว่าผมจะเล่นบิลอะไร และผมคิดว่าผมต้องไปโหลดมาภายในวันนี้พรุ่งนี้เพื่อมาเก็บ Battle Pass ของซีซั่น7เพราะยังเก็บไม่ครบแต่มีใครเล่น D4 บ้างมีไหมรอดูดึกขนาดนี้ผมว่าคนที่รอดูนี่70-80%ต้องเล่นใช่ไหม
Yes. Hello?
อาจจะผมข้ามไปซีซั่น1มันต้องสนุกแน่ๆคล้ายๆกัน
So much power for something so light.
อืมดีครับสนใจเบรดแดนใน LE เล่นสักเดี๋ยวมันเกี่ยวอะไรกับเดียโบนะสนุกบิวเร็วดาเมจเยอะ น่าสนใจใช่ไหมซีซั่นนี้ผมคิดว่าซีซั่นนี้น่าสนใจมากพอสมควร มากพอที่ผมน่าจะกลับไปเล่นมากกว่า1ตัวละครครับเพิ่งกดซื้อมาตอนเย็นเลยครับ D4 จัดไปเก็บจนนี้ไปได้พาร์ทครบเลิกเลยหวังว่าซีซั่นนี้จะไม่เป็นอย่างนั้นพักไป2ซีซั่นเล่นไม่นานเพราะไม่มีตัวเสริมซึมกับบิลที่ต้องใช้รูนจริงเข้าใจเลยไม่มีตัวเสริมเล่นลำบากมากครับ D4 เกมแพนมีช่องทางอื่นเล่นไหมครับ มีซื้อเกมพาสเล่นได้ฟรี แต่ว่าไม่ได้ตัวเสริมนะ ซื้อที่ผมซื้อไหนครับ มีราคาเกิน 2,000 เกือบพันเท่ากัน 2 แบบ อันที่เป็นสีเขียวครับผม อันที่เป็นรูป คนใส่หมวกมีเสือสีเขียว แล้วแถมตัวเบสเกมด้วย มันอยู่ในเกมพาสอยู่ครับ ใช่ แล้วก็ซื้อตัวเสริมได้ใช่ เดี๋ยวพรุ่งนี้เรามาอ่านแพทชกันเนาะคืนนี้ดึกแล้วผมต้องขอตัวลาไปก่อน ขอบคุณทุกคนที่นั่งอยู่ดู Developer อัปเดตด้วยกันด้วย แล้วก็เดี๋ยวอัพคลิปดูย้อนหลังนะครับ สรุปแพทชโน้ตแล้วเดี๋ยวค่อยว่ากันอีกทีเนาะยังไงเดี๋ยวลอนช์วันที่29เจอกันแน่นอนสำหรับ Diablo 4ตัวเสริมคือ DLC Vessel of Hatred ครับผมซึ่งมันจะมีตัวละครคลาสอีกคลาสหนึ่งที่อยู่ในตัวนั้นเบสเกม DLC ที่ไม่มีเกมตัวหลักที่คุ้มสุดใช่อันนั้นคุ้มสุดต้องเขียนว่าเบสเกมบวก DLC นะ29บ้านเราใช่ไหมจริงๆถ้ามันเป็นเวลานี้ก็น่าจะเป็น30ครับน่าจะเป็น30เดี๋ยวพรุ่งนี้ผมเช็คอีกทีวันนี้ไม่ไหวละนะหลับฝันดีราตรีสวัสดิ์ทุกคนนะครับวันนี้ผมขอบคุณมากไม่เจอกันครับ